Hello and welcome to the south of France. We are at les Rencontres économiques, a French economic forum held in the beautiful city of Aix-en-Provence. And I'm joined by Nigerian activist Hafsat Abiola. Hafsat, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Your father was the first democratically elected president after a very long military rule. His victory was annulled and he was immediately thrown in jail. Is that why you decided to become an activist?
Definitely. I actually decided because he was thrown in jail and my mother took on the work to build a democratic struggle in Nigeria. Kudrat Abiola. And one day I was walking in school at Harvard. I was in my second year and I ran into some students petitioning. And I thought, you know, students in America, what can they be petitioning for? The right to have beef on Sunday? You know, I just thought there are no problems here really. And then they stopped me when I was trying to avoid them. And they said, please, we're getting signatures. An elected president is in prison in Nigeria and we're trying to demand his release. And I started crying. And I said, you know, you're speaking about my father. And they didn't know. So I ran home to my dorm and I called my mom. And I said, can you send me the documents? There's some students here trying to help daddy get released. And my mother faxed me all these documents. It was the time of faxes, you know, not email. And I went to collect the fax. And on the top of the document, she said, thank you, Hafsat. I've been waiting for you to ask to help. Had it not been for those students who came to me, I would not even have known how to help. So for me, how we fought for democracy in Nigeria was really that we counted on the solidarity of people around the world, and they helped us. It was people in America, people in England, people in France, people in Germany, not so much even the governments, because sometimes the governments are so much concerned about their interests in African countries, and they don't pay attention to the democratic rights of African people. But the people of these wealthier countries, of these democracies, stood in solidarity. And with their solidarity, we were able to gain democracy in 1999. Unfortunately, my father died 6 months before we had a transfer to democratic rule. And he died on this day. So I feel really that in a way, I've continued to honor the legacy of both my parents. Both of them died in the course of the struggle. And to continue to fight for democracy and to fight for a democracy that brings about the dividends, the gains that the people need.
In the past 20 years, do you think Nigeria has become a true democracy?
It is becoming better as a democracy. We've had so many challenges. In a way, we've failed because the poverty that my father saw that made him come forward to serve as president in Nigeria is deeper in Nigeria today than it was in 1993 when my father won the election. But today, over the last...
Why do you think so?
Because we had a lot of elected officials who were not really concerned, as my father was, to serve the people. You know, we had an unlucky situation where we had been fighting the military, and by 1999, when we had won that fight, in a way we won and in a way we lost. Because we won that the military retreated to the barracks, but they made sure that the people that replaced them were their kind of puppets. You know, so in a way we lost, in a way we won. And it has taken us about 20 years to now have a democratic government that is committed to the people, and which is what we have now in Nigeria. So in that 20 years, after my father died, after my mother died, the governments we had never even mentioned my parents. For 20 years, they never mentioned them. And now the current president, as he has based his whole administration, he launched his new administration, which he got, his new mandate he got in February, in the election we held in February. He launched his new government on the day of my father's historic election, sending a signal to the people of Nigeria that this democracy is for you. It's not for the vested interest, because what we have in Nigeria, like what you see in a lot of countries around the world, is a small group controlling democracy, trying to use democracy in their own interest, so that's why people are getting disillusioned. So the president in Nigeria is sending a direct signal to the people that this government is your government. It's not a government of a small minority. It's not controlled, and it's not going to benefit a small minority. If it benefits the small minority, fine, but first let it benefit everybody.
And do you think that's one of the problems in Africa, that there are democracy that are not true democracy, they're not in the benefits of the people?
Oh yes, but the African people have become wiser. You know, you guys you're not looking for us in Europe. You don't want us to come. And we also don't want to come. We don't like your winter.
I want you to come.
And if we want to come at this time of year and visit the south of France, like people all over the world visit beautiful places. But we are also happy to stay in Africa. And because we understand that Africa is our home, we need to take the responsibility to build it. And that is what we're doing. I'm lucky that now I work with a group called Women in Africa. And we have members all over the continent of Africa, women, leading women, who are working to find solutions to problems in agriculture in Africa, problems of building enterprises in Africa. A lot of our enterprises in Africa are micro. If Africa is going to solve our problems so that we're not a problem for Europe, we need to move them from micro to small, from small to medium, from medium to large. And these women are tackling those issues, how to do that, how to create markets in Africa. Africa now, we represent billions of dollars of a consumer market for agriculture. And this is consumer markets that, for example, onions is coming to Mali from the Netherlands. Why? When Nigeria can supply Mali. So now we have the Africa Free Trade Agreement that is going to allow Africa to trade within Africa. About 70% of trade in Europe is intra-Europe.
Yes.
In Africa, it's about 30%. So there's so much, no, in fact, I think maybe even 20% is intra-Africa. There's so much room for Africa to grow within Africa so that we can provide jobs for people, prosperity for people, decent wages for people. And then they're not trying to migrate. We don't want them to migrate as well. We don't want economic migrants. We want migrants that just maybe come because they just want to experience another part of the world. But now that our migrants are so uncontrolled, because our economies are not strong enough, we're coming out, and it's creating crises in so many countries of Europe.
But it's the economy, but it's also insecurity.
Yes, look at Libya. Look at the fiasco of Libya. And this is it's a direct message that I want to give, that if you want Africa and you don't want the Africans, no problem. You don't have to have the Africans, but you should not also be destabilizing Africa. You should not be destabilizing Africa with your ridiculous efforts to bring peace and democracy. What nonsense. And all it did in Libya is create a failed state in Libya where mercenaries are now infiltrating Mali, infiltrating Nigeria. I can't tell you the number of people that have died in Nigeria because of the rise of Boko Haram that was fueled by the collapse of Libya. Who do we charge?
Mercenaries turned into Islamists?
Not just mercenaries, bringing arms. That there was a cache of arms in Libya that is now infiltrating all of the Sahel region, destabilizing the Sahel region of Africa. What I would love to see, my sister, is a situation where the ICC, the International Criminal Court, can begin to tackle these kinds of problems. Because we have all these powerful countries behaving irresponsibly, creating problems in weaker countries. It's enough of that. We want a new day, and I think if we have the ICC actually be able to tackle these kinds of problems, we will see less audacity and nonsense from our so-called friends. And we want more solidarity. Our true friends, now with digital systems, our true friends can come to Africa, can engage with us. They can find partners in Africa and work with us to build enterprises within the continent.
But do you think someone is benefiting from Boko Haram, from the downfall of Libya? Surely...
Without question, somebody is benefiting. It's not even just somebody. There are groups of people benefiting. The arms traders who are selling arms across Africa, they've been selling from the 17th century. In fact, if you look at the pattern of Africa's engagement in the world, the irresponsibility of more powerful players, that pattern actually has not changed. Even countries that are the leading democracies and the leading democratic voices, like Sweden, is one of also our biggest arms exporters to the continent.
So everything is very cynical.
No, it's not. I'm not a cynical person. I'm actually a very romantic person.
But the situation is very cynical in Africa.
The situation is dire, and the ignorance of people is the biggest part of the problem. Let them first understand that when they see these migrants, the migrants are only the fruits that they see. The roots is embedded in their own economies, in their own systems, in their own privilege. Let them tackle that. What we need is responsible global citizenship, where everyone is paying in a world system, but all the costs are also being shared in the world system. Right now, the costs have been located in Africa and in places like Africa where the governments are not strong. the benefits are being held in small hands, in small regions of the world, like in Europe, especially Western Europe, like in the United States. But the world is changing, and there are rising powers now who are taking advantage of the how do you say, the loopholes that these more powerful countries created over time. Now, the more powerful countries are complaining. Nobody's interested in your complaints. We're interested in changing the global system to an equitable, just system that is going to work for everyone, or it's not going to work for anyone.
Thank you, Hafsat Abiola. That's all we have time for, unfortunately. And thank you all for watching.